well, let's get into it. We have a few questions today to cover in our Q&A. So we're getting to the holidays. Like we are right in the middle of holiday season, and I think what we are finding is that people are kind of getting off the rails a little bit, and maybe are struggling with some sort of social pressures and stuff like that. So I know we've talked about this before, but I really want us to kind of go into how to survive the holidays with your fitness and nutrition intact. So specifically, the question I got was, what is your suggestion for attending functions when you know everything there is on your list of foods to avoid? What is your suggestion? You guys are stumped. No suggestions? Just don't go? Just stay in your house?
No. You want to start?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Sounds like you had.
No, I think there's like the easy answer to this question is you can bring something that you will want to eat. That's how I've handled some social gatherings in the past.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm going to bring a thing that I'm actually really excited about eating and that it meets my goals.
Yeah.
And then I can just fill up my plate with that. And maybe I find one or two other things that are pretty innocuous that look good. And that's what I choose.
Yeah.
But to me, that's sort of like maybe one of the easiest ways to go about it.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say, Wendy?
So I always tell myself that the holidays, my routine will be different, right? Because basically from the beginning of the year, right, up until I want to say like October or when the fall comes in, like we start to get holidays and, we're just starting to get that.
Yeah.
So I always tell myself holidays only come once a year, right? Gatherings only come once a year now, especially with the pandemic and all that. So I allow myself to enjoy the holidays, right? What does that mean to me? That means that I'm going to keep up with my workout routine. I'm going to work out 6 days a week, right?
Yeah.
And when I have those gatherings, social gatherings, I am going to, so I tend to have a plan basically, right? I don't just come into this and just say, well, I'm just going to wing it and see how it goes, because most likely that for me doesn't work, right? I'm a planner, so I do like to plan things ahead of time.
Yeah.
Even if things don't go according to my plan, right? I do like to have some sort of an idea of what it could look like, right? So then, so I know that we have our holiday coming up. We have a few other gatherings too that I have coming up too as well. So for me, I'm going to keep up with my workout routine. I'm going to do my best to stick with my plan, with my nutrition from, Monday through Thursday, and Friday through Sunday, I'm just going to work out and then enjoy whatever it is that I want for that gathering. Right.
Yeah.
So I think the best approach for me will be to have a plan, right? And with gatherings, social gatherings, you pretty much don't have much control of your environment, right? You're not the cook. You're not the one who's providing the food, right?
Yeah.
So then you kind of you're not at your home where you are in charge of the food, right?
Yeah.
What you're cooking. So it's actually better to not think I'm going to stick to the plan, because most likely it's not going to happen, right? You are at someone else's place, or you're at a different gathering, or you're at a bar, or whatever the case is, a different restaurant.
Right.
So it's better to just say, okay, so from, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I'm going to try to hit like a palm size of protein, right, with my greens and whatever the case is, whatever the plan is. And then once I'm there, I'm going to enjoy, a palm of something or a thumb of something, right? So something like that. Just kind of come up with like an idea of what that's going to look like, what you think it's going to look like.
Yeah.
Right. So that's how I tend to approach it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a planner. I like to think, or I always like to think ahead, like what could that look like?
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't go that way, right? But at least I did thought about it, right? Versus just, going into like, well, I'm just going to see what I find there and I'm just going to eat it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think both of you are kind of planners. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'm not a planner. So what I would do here is, let's say, okay, I have a list of foods I can eat, and I know going into it, it's like there's going to be stuff that's like not on the list, right?
Yeah.
Now, what I try to do is create an environment where it's easier for me to make the right choices than I won't call them wrong choices, but the choices that don't serve me. And so in this case, what I would do is let's say you're going to a party, I would eat before I go to the party, right? I would
You wouldn't eat?
No, I would eat
You
before
would
I
eat.
went to the party, right? Like I would eat like, let's say whatever your normal, let's say you're having like fish and, broccoli and potatoes and, whatever. Like I would have that dinner before I go to the party. And so when you get to the dinner and the lasagna comes around or whatever, it's like, well, maybe you want to taste it, but you're not as hungry.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's not going to be this thing where you're like, oh my God, I'm going to have, five servings of lasagna.
Right.
And I've actually found that it's sort of a combination of like, I don't like to go somewhere and not be able to enjoy the stuff, but I also know that if I go there on empty stomach, then it's like I'm going to over enjoy it, and then I'm going to feel like crap the next day, right? So, let's say you're going to a party. I'm going to try to collect wins that day. So I'm going to work out early in the morning. I'm going to eat a good breakfast, eat a good lunch. I'm going to eat dinner before I go to the thing. I'll probably drink a bunch of water. And so by the time I got there, I've gotten like 3 or 4 wins. And then when I'm there, it's like, okay, well, look, maybe I'm going to have a little bit of lasagna and a couple of pieces of pecan pie. And then when I get home, I'm not going to bring all the leftovers home, right? And then what I want is a really quick win for the next day. So the next day I'm like, great, I'm gonna have my breakfast ready to go.
Yeah.
So another thing you can do to like create your environment here is to have your breakfast ready for the next day, right? So this is a little bit of planning, but it's a little more just like, let's just make the choices that serve you easier and the ones that don't serve you harder, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've put on over the holidays, I think my record was like 25 pounds or something. And it didn't happen because I went to parties. It happened because after the party, the next day and the next day and the next day, I just ate whatever the hell I wanted. It was just like, oh, I'm going to order DoorDash. I'm going to go to the store. I'm getting an ice cream. Oh, this is the last time. I better have that almond roca. I love almond roca. I better have that stuff because it's like the last time I can have it.
Yeah.
And then it's like you get 3 weeks of the last time and you put on 20 pounds. Like it's pretty easy to do. Right. So I think the best thing is to just set yourself up to get wins before the thing, wins right after the thing. And when you get there, look, if you go off a plan for 3 hours of one day over the course of a week, it is not going to kill you.
For sure. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Totally.
And in fact, if you don't do that, then you're going to have problems. Like if you just stoically stick to the plan forever, like you're one day going to go off the rails.
Yep.
Right. And so it's better for you to allow yourself a little wiggle room without going completely off.
I agree.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Very well said.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love what you said about front loading or like having something to eat beforehand. And I feel like what happens around the holiday for a lot of people is that you enter into this cycle of eating a lot and maybe drinking a lot in the evening.
Yep.
And then you wake up the next morning and you're not hungry. And so you're like, well, I'm not going to have breakfast then. And like maybe I'll just nibble on some snacks or whatever at lunch. So then by the time then dinner rolls around, it's this same kind of like sequence.
Yep.
Where you tend to overeat. When we eat at night, we know generally we're not making oftentimes the best, most nourishing choices.
Yeah.
And so like it gets hard for people, I think, sometimes to break this cycle, because what it forces you to do if you want to break it is like you kind of have to force yourself to eat breakfast one day when you might not even be hungry.
Yeah.
And so for people who are feeling like I'm bloated and I'm like heavy and I'm like the last thing I want to do is eat more food, and they don't see that as actually being preventative in the long run.
Right.
So that's like one advice that I would give too, is like you find yourself overindulging one night rather than starve yourself the next morning, which can be tempting. Have a breakfast the next morning.
Yep. So the other thing, this is just a straight up hack, And it's not going to be recommendation for everyone depending on what sort of plan you're on. But one thing I find really works is to track what you're about to eat before you eat it. Right?
That's what I do.
and so it's like you can have all the pieces of pecan pie you want, but you have to put it in before you eat it. So now you can see, oh shit, that's 400 calories. I'm having 4 pieces of that. Wow, that's 1,600 calories just in dessert. Or if you're not into tracking, take a picture of it, right? Just like that moment of awareness is just like, I'm not just shoveling, handfuls of M&Ms, because you know how people leave out the M&Ms, and then like sometimes they mix them up. So you're like, you grab it, it's like, oh, some of them are peanut butter and some of them are peanut. Yeah. So, so you can get like handfuls of them, right? If you have to take a picture of it, then it's like, awareness. Okay, maybe I won't do a whole handful. Maybe I'll just do a few, right? And that just awareness. And if you get used to doing that, then it just pauses you for a second, right? So this is another just hack that I find that works. It doesn't work if you say, oh, I'll just track it later and then just like enter it all in, because you're just like, either you enter it in accurately and you're like, holy shit, that was a lot, or you miss things.
Yeah, right.
Which is I think we said last week, the average person, they found there was a study that measured like how much calories people think they ate versus how much they actually eat. And there's like a 50% variance. Like people are eating 50% more calories than they think. And the leaner they are, the closer their calories are to what they actually eat. So if they're lean, then they're usually about 10% off. If they are not lean, they're like 50 to 70% off. Isn't that crazy? It's just like what you think you do is wrong is when it comes down to, right?
Yeah, I would say the other thing that I might consider is when we go to social gatherings, like oftentimes the focus is on the food. And like around holidays in general, there's so much focus on food. But if you can find like some other thing too that like you want to get out of that gathering, whether it's like, hey, a person is going to be there that you're really excited to see, or there's a hike that you're going to do nearby, or some game that you're going to play, like finding something that excites you about being at that gathering that actually doesn't center food is another way to, then if you don't eat all the things, you're not like approaching it from a scarcity mindset of like, oh, all the things I didn't have. Like it's more of an abundance, like, wow, like all the people I got to visit, all the things I got to do and see.
Yeah. I do want to really be conscious of what Wendy said though. Like if food is part of it and that's the thing you enjoy, like enjoy it, right? It's like you really, when it comes down to it, it's really hard for you to down like 4,000 calories in one sitting. Like you have to really try hard with really high calorie food. And so it's not what you do in a single meal. It's what you do over the course of like the weeks. It's, that's what matters. It's what you do the next day and the next day and the next day that matters. So, all right. So another good question. The holidays have already brought you extra weight. Now what? How do you redefine success to stay motivated? So I have an idea on this one because I was thinking about this. We talked about this earlier. We're doing a workout today called Fight Gone Bad, right? And you go into the workout thinking, I'm going to get like 400 reps on this. And then after round 1, you're like, I think I'm going to go for 300 reps on this. Right? Because reality hits you and you're like, I am not going to make it to this based on what has happened up to this point.
Plan B.
Yeah, plan B. You got to go to plan B. And so, I mean, I think this is true of everything in life, right? It's like you have to kind of start where you are, right? So like, okay, you put on 5 pounds already. Thanksgiving has passed. You've been to like 2 Christmas parties. You've added 5 pounds. Great.
Awesome.
Yeah. Now, and now instead of being 150, you're 155. Okay. Do you want to go into January at 160? At 170? Not that the weight matters, but you get what I'm saying? Like, or do you want to figure out a way to either maintain where you are or maybe just limit the potential damage, right? I think you're always having to sort of renegotiate with what's happening now.
Right.
And so how would you do that? How would you think through that?
So an action step, I would take an action step, right?
Yeah.
So, what I could, and this is not much about the weight, right? But there's like a couple of things that you can do. Okay. So okay, I did put a few pounds, for the holidays or whatever. And one easy thing you can do is just make sure you work out every single day, right? Like Monday, like 6 times a week or 5 times a week, right? And I think and this is also me, when I work out, I like I like to feel good in my workouts. I don't like to feel crappy, right? So, and this is what some of the things that I've done too in the past when I feel like, my eating is a little off, and you can tell that my eating is a little off because my workouts feel crappy, right?
Yeah.
So then, and then my workouts, I started like working out a little bit less because I just don't feel like working out because I don't feel good in the workouts, right?
Yeah.
So then, I said, I'm like, okay, I need to do an action step here because I'm feeling crappy right now.
Yeah.
So first thing I would probably do is just make sure that I keep up with my workout routine. So 6 times a week, right? And then 1 day off. And then from there, the workouts tend to motivate me to do good in my nutrition.
Yeah.
Because I like to, I want to feel good in my workouts. And from there, I start to pay attention on my food a little bit more without even me saying I'm going to, go hard on my nutrition.
Yeah.
It actually started from just me saying I'm going to work out 6 times a week, right? And from there, it just works, it works together, like all at once, right? Now, this might not work for everyone, right? But that's one thing that I would try to do, right? Just, pick like a X amount of days that you want to work out. Try to stick with that same consistency. And if you can put maybe a little something there, right? And this could be, okay, next time I'm going to keep up with my hydration, making sure that I'm drinking X amount of water, right? Every single day. Then add that thing. But I think just, again, like what is success going to look like for you for the rest of the month?
So you're kind of saying go back to baseline.
Yes.
Right? And it's like that pyramid that we always talk about where you just like show up. Okay, great. Like I had a setback.
Yeah.
Great. Let's just, do I have the basics sorted? Am I working out? Am I drinking enough water?
Yeah.
Okay. What does my next meal look like?
Yes.
Not necessarily like what I did in the last 10 meals.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I love what Wendy described there because I think so often when people have so many feelings about this, when people like see the scale go up, there's this freak out moment and there's this desire to change all the things at once.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And usually we see that backfire pretty quickly, and then people get in this cycle. But picking like one small action, like we've talked about before, like maybe it's even just like getting up and making your bed or brushing your teeth, or whatever it is. It's just like one small action that's going to set your day right. I think can make a huge difference rather than trying to change all the things at once.
I think that working out is actually a great, here's a little secret. Working out is not going to help you lose weight. Like, I mean, it will from a psychological perspective, but in terms of like you actually losing pounds on the scale, it doesn't help you that much. What it does do is there's some hormones that it releases to help reduce your appetite, right? It also helps you burn a little bit more fuel. And more importantly, it puts you in a frame of mind where you are taking care of yourself, right? And so it's really hard for you to hold both, like, oh, I gained weight, I'm a piece of shit, and I showed up at the gym 6 days this week. Like it's one or the other. It's like, well, of course I gained a little bit of weight. I ate like a whole loaf of bread and I retained a bunch of water, right? Yeah. But I've been showing up at the gym every day. So, actually I'm still doing the things that make me go in the right direction. Maybe I'm just in maintenance mode right now. And once these holidays are over, then that stuff will go away. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I think that's like, Atomic Habits, where they talk about this. It's like every step that you take is a vote for the person that you want to become. And so whether you're actually that person or not, if you're voting for that every time, then eventually you're going to become that person. Yeah. I think your point about looking at the scale, like it's just so myopic. Like your scale today means nothing, right? It's like the trend of what happened this month, and this time last year and over the course of the year, that's what actually matters. Yeah. So I read somewhere recently actually that, maybe I talked about this last week, people put on an average of something like 5 pounds a year. And most of that is during the holidays. Like they put it on during the holidays and then they don't lose it. Right. And so it's like good to pay attention to it, but don't overly focus on it.
Yeah. That has always just like felt like such a shame to me that so many people get to the end of the holiday season. It's like at the end of the season when they have all these things, I don't know, like the thing that sticks with them is like the fact that they're 2 pounds heavier, they're 5 pounds heavier, right?
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, well, what about the, 3 weeks that you just like spent with your family or with your office mates and like the joy, and maybe those experiences weren't joyful for you. And maybe food was an escapism for you. And maybe there's something deeper there that you have to address, but like, I don't know, the fact that like we get to the end of the holiday season and so often just like fixate on the fact that like, oh, my shirt fits a little bit tighter and not like on all the things that were gained from that.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes I feel like people even go into the holidays already thinking they're going to gain all these pounds.
Totally.
Because it's just a cycle that they're like, oh, here we go again. I'm going to put 20 pounds. And like, it's already stuck, right? And when you like go into it, then of course you're going to do it because you're already thinking about it. So I thought about this the other day, and it's just like, you already thinking that you're going to be heavier at the end of this year. And I'm just like, well, I mean, it doesn't have to happen. Like 2 months is not going to ruin that whole entire year that you have been busting your ass off working out and, doing other things. But yeah, I think going into it with a different mentality might help too as well. Right? Like not thinking, oh, here I go, putting another 20 pounds and eating like all the pie and all that stuff. So maybe just thinking it differently, this like, like getting into it. That might help.
Yeah. I think the fact that this is a question that I was sent in. The fact that that you've gained a little extra weight, that's actually going to prevent you from gaining more weight. Because it's the awareness that actually causes the change.
Yeah.
So like if gaining weight is a huge concern for you over the holidays, well, don't ignore your weight over the holidays. Don't stress about it, but it's just like, you may want to actually measure how much you weigh over the holidays, because that awareness is going to have you change some of your behavior. I mean, we talked about this before, right? We did a video about this. You don't have to diet to lose weight.
Yeah.
You don't. Like, you actually don't. All you have to do is weigh yourself every day and measure everything that goes in your mouth. I swear to God, if you do this, you will lose weight if that's your goal, right? Because it's the awareness that causes the change in activity. The food you eat doesn't actually matter. It's just a matter of like how much you're consuming and then how much you're burning. If your goal is to lose weight, then bringing awareness helps. Now, some people struggle with the scale. So there's other forms of awareness that might work better for them. But if you ignore it, then who knows what's going to happen, right? If that's your goal, right? So, and I think that's what it is. A lot of people go into holidays just like, fuck it, I'm switching it off, right? Yeah, I don't want to worry about any of this stuff. And I agree. I've gone through the holidays just like super strict on my nutrition, and it wasn't great.
It wasn't.
Honestly.
No, I've done that before too.
Yeah.
I actually beat myself, and like I had so many regrets.
Yeah.
Like, why did I do that?
Yeah, it's just like
I was miserable.
I skip every party, and like I don't have lasagna. It's just like it sucks, right? But you can go.
I keep hearing lasagna. Is that
that's our like family tradition. We get lasagna once a year, and it's either on Christmas Eve or Christmas.
That is
Tina,
so cool.
Tina makes it.
So cool.
Okay.
And it's like, it's amazing. It's my favorite.
Yeah, I think you're the second person. I think Nancy told me that. I don't know. I think I was asking a question of the day, like, oh, what's your favorite pasta or whatever?
Yeah.
And then Nancy's like, lasagna from Tina.
Yeah.
Like,
it's amazing.
That's awesome.
And so, we get our favorite wine, we have lasagna, we have bread. It's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not like a super fan of like the traditional Christmas food.
Yeah.
It's like whatever. And we have that on Thanksgiving. So Christmas is
a treat.
Lasagna.
Yeah.
It's the only time of year we have it. So I mean, I do think bringing the awareness is actually the thing that makes the difference. And there's lots of different ways. Like we said, take a picture, weighing yourself, measuring your food. Like even just taking a moment and breathing before you eat is enough to bring awareness, or chewing more of your food, whatever it is. It's the awareness that will kind of slow you down from going in the direction you don't want to go.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I was just having a conversation with someone about like the power, like what are the tools that we bring to the table no matter where we're at or what food we have. Like going to a friend's house or going to a restaurant or whatnot. It's like no matter what, we can always slow things down.
Yeah.
And generally when we slow things down, like you can have truthfully almost anything you want.
Yeah.
If you consume it slowly and you're paying attention to what your body's feeling,
Yeah.
plus you can enjoy it more that way too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to shift gears a little bit because I've been doing a lot of like consult calls recently. So like, new people want to join the gym and I'm talking to them. And one of the things that I have discovered, and I kind of realized this recently, most people, when they get on that consult call, either they sign up and they work with us or they do nothing. And I wrote in the chat here, like, the biggest enemy of progress. And I've been thinking about this from a sort of a bigger picture. The biggest enemy of progress is most people actually do nothing. Like in general, and this is going to sound like really weird, but like if you have a goal that you want, like for most people, they have a goal. It's not that they don't know what to do. It's not that they, are maybe they're unsure about the goal. Most of the time, it's just they don't take action. They don't do anything. And what I've noticed when people either quit our gym or they don't sign up, if I follow up with them 2-3 months later and ask them what they're doing, it's not that, they went to the gym down the street or, they started working out at home. They're doing nothing. And it's like, I actually feel terrible about that because, then we had this conversation and like, I, for some reason, didn't get across how big of a difference this is going to make for you. And so instead of you taking an action that's going to help transform your life, you just spent the next 3 months doing absolutely nothing. And now you feel worse about yourself. And this came from a very specific conversation that I had with somebody who had just come from the emergency room like a week earlier and had like heart issues and was put on like blood pressure medication and all this other stuff. And she's like, I cannot go back to the emergency room. This is not something I can do. And I was like, great, like we can help you. And it's, here's how we can help you. And here's what it's going to be. We were talking about the whole thing and like, it wasn't the price. Like she, was an issue for her. It wasn't the timing. It was just like, I need to think about it. And I was like, what do you need to think about? Like for the last almost 50 years, you've done nothing and you ended up in the emergency room. What do you want the next 50 years to be about? Or the next 5 years, because you might not make it that long. And it was like a really interesting conversation because the doing nothing about your health led her to that situation. And if she continues down that road, then she's not going to make it another 50 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think this is true of most people. Now, if you're listening to this, you're working with us, right? You've done something. But the reason I wanted to bring it up is because if you look at other areas of your life, it's like, I've been thinking about learning how to play the guitar. I've been thinking about like quitting my job and starting that side business. I've been thinking about finding a new career. I've been thinking about going back to school. I've been thinking about, whatever. What other things do you think people think about? Right? Going on a date or something? Getting a divorce? Just do it. No, I mean, the point is this. Like, I actually think that when it comes to any goal that you want, whether it's a health goal or a life goal, you have to just start doing stuff and then you'll figure out the right path.
Yeah.
Most people try to figure out the perfect path before they start doing things.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because I'm like thinking about something that I like. Let's say I want to learn how to, ride a horse. Let's just say that, right?
Yeah, now you're talking. You're speaking my language. Let's go, Wendy.
Right. So now I'm thinking.
You could be a jockey, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm thinking now, okay, now I have to go and find a place where they can teach me how to, ride a horse. And then from there, lessons. And, I'm already thinking, oh man, that's just way too much. Maybe not. I just have too much in my life going on. I have Weston and I have mom. So I'm thinking of all the things already that might not be able to, make it happen.
Yeah.
So I think, that's how some of the things that happen to me whenever I think of taking something new, right? Or this could be anything, right? This could be not a workout, even with a workout, right? A new workout, it looks scary. now I'm thinking, well, I might not make it here. I might not make it here. All right, maybe just do this. Like, I'm just like overthinking and thinking all the things that might go wrong.
Yeah.
So failing, I think, is my thing that kind of puts me back. Like, maybe it's not time for me to do this because I'm not ready yet to fully commit it. And if I do commit to it and I fail, like, I'm going to feel like the worst person ever. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking.
That's a lot of thinking.
Yeah. But honestly, I think it could be the very same thing when people, they're not quite ready to fully commit to lose weight, right? Because they're thinking all these things.
Yep.
So that's how I think goes through people's mind when they say no.
That is such a great description of what actually happens. Right? It's just like, this is what actually happens. Like, it's not that they are intentionally like, F this, whatever, I'm just not going to do nothing. But it's just like, I got to get all my ducks in a row before I take any sort of action. Right? Has that ever happened to you, Katie?
Yeah,
Never?
Definitely. Oh, no, 100%. 100%. I mean, I think you tapped on like a lot of the reasons why change is so hard.
Yeah.
Is because, well, what's the saying? Like, perfect inaction is worse than imperfect action. Like, people are afraid to like take that first step, even if it's like, maybe just kind of like, even like half-assed or like kind of shitty first step.
Yeah.
But I guess like when I confront like people who want to do a thing but haven't done the thing yet, is like, I find so often it's rarely that they are having trouble saying yes to the thing they wanted to do. It's more often like what you mentioned, which is like they have a really hard time saying no to the other things that are already going on in their life. So oftentimes when I'm trying to guide someone to make like a decision, it's like, what are you willing to say no to? Like, let's figure that out first so that we can create space for this yes that you want to say. You're right.
So what's interesting though is like, how do you even know that you want to say no unless you take action, right? Like, how do you know you want to give something up? Like, how do you even know that you have to give something up? You want to learn how to ride a horse, right? What is that, like a weekend?
I don't know.
Like it might be a weekend, right? Like it might just be, you might be 3 hours away from being like an amazing horse rider, right? Could be.
Okay.
You don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. Like you might go your whole life without ever learning this thing.
Yeah.
Just because you think you have to like, go Weston and I got to do my meal prep today and I got to work away. It's freaking 3 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. But then when I think about it, right, it's just like, oh no, it's just way too much. I cannot,
But that's the thing. You're thinking about it versus taking action to find out that it's either 3 hours, because it might be 3 hours, or it might be 25 hours.
Yep.
And once you get in, you're like, this is actually like a lifetime commitment. Nah, I'm not into it. Either that or I'm going to give something up to do that lifetime commitment.
Yes.
And I think I don't think what you're saying is actually true for a lot of people. I think it's what they think. And it's only once you start to take some action where you start to find out what this really involves. If I'm like, you know what, I'm going to make the NBA, right? And it's like, well, I mean, I might, okay, great. I'm going to go see, first I'm going to go buy a basketball or whatever, right? And I'm going to go, shoot a couple shots. Okay, great. Now I'm going to go find out where the NBA players, see if I can compete against them. I go out there and they destroy me. Okay, how long have you been playing basketball? Oh, 27 years? Oh, I don't know if I want to dedicate 27 years to making the NBA. Also, I'm in my 40s. This is probably not a thing that I want. But I've already taken a few steps so I can at least find out what that is.
Right.
And so the reason I wanted to share this with everyone today is because the thing that I have found that's made the biggest difference, like I fully believe that you need to act first and then think about it. Because when you act first, you get some evidence to support like whether this is going to work or not going to work, right? So you go Google, where's the horse riding place around here, right? There's actually one in Marin, I think. And so you go out there, right? So you go out there and, like, okay, when is the open lessons? Right? Oh, it's like $50. Great. I'll sign up for this next Saturday. So you go, you search it, you send them an email or you sign up for the thing online. Now you've taken an action. So you get there and you find out that like, horse riding is hella difficult, right? And you do it for an hour and you're like, this is absolutely not for me, right?
Like, why are you doing this, Katie?
So now you've taken that action.
Yeah.
and you realize that this is not for me, I'm not willing to give anything up.
Yep.
And now you can let go of that for the rest of your life. You don't have to have that bug in you in the back of your brain, like, why didn't I do this?
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
And so the tool that I use most often, you've probably heard of this one, is the 5-second rule. Right? Have you ever heard of the 5-second rule?
I think I have.
Oh, okay, great. You've never heard of this?
When you drop something on the floor.
No. That is one example of the 5-second rule. So this is. So I'll just tell you a story. There's an author named Mel Robbins, and she came up with this idea of the 5-second rule. She was having she was in her mid-40s, and she was having like midlife crisis, bankrupt, all this stuff, right? She didn't want to get out of bed. And one night before she was going to bed, she watched like some sort of like rocket launch or something, right? And at the end of the rocket launch, they go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then the thing goes, right? And she, for some reason, said, you know what, let me just try this in my, to see if I can get up out of bed. So the alarm goes off. She wakes up in the morning, and her rule was she counted down from 5. And by the time she got to 1, she had to get out of bed, right? So she just said 5, 4, 3, and then she's up and out of bed, right? And so the way she tells the story is like she started applying that to other areas of her life, things that she was avoiding, right? And every time she had this urge to do something that would move her forward towards her goals, she would just start counting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? And before she got to 1, she had to take some sort of action. She had to physically move and do something, right? And the reason I kind of bring this up, so many people do nothing. They just wait for it. They overthink or whatever. Whereas if you can just say, okay, I have this urge to learn how to ride a horse. I'm going to open up my phone and search horse riding in my area, 5, 4, 3, and you just do it, right? Then you'll at least move forward on the thing. And it's that forward momentum that actually gets you to where you want to be and gives your, makes you grow and learn and, brings your life meaning, right? You never heard of the 5-second rule?
Well, I actually do it in workouts, like for a lift, right?
Yeah, every single time.
Yeah, for a scary lift, I'm going to back up, I'll count to 5, right? And then, I can see how that can work in like life. Just
every
with
workout
everything.
we do is 3, 2, 1, go. And like, okay, so just this happens every time. You're like 2-3 minutes before the workout, you're just like, oh my God, I don't know if I can lift this. I don't know. Oh man, I'm not feeling good today, right? Whatever. Like my shoulder kind of hurts. Rebecca said I need to do this. I don't want to do that. Like you're having all of this like crazy thoughts in your head. And then the clock goes 10, 9, and it starts, all that stuff starts to die down because like this train is leaving the station. Right?
Yeah.
And then when it's time to go, you go.
That's awesome. I like that.
And you just pick up the weight, right? You just do it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's actually an amazing metaphor for how we should treat everything in life.
I like that.
Yeah. I love the idea of like Tom Bilyeu talks a lot about that too, of like acting first, because acting actually creates the belief that the thing is possible. Yeah. Versus we often think the other way around, like, oh, I've got to believe that the thing is possible before I even act. But like actually, it's like this positive feedback loop we've talked about before. Yeah.
Yeah. Because your brain is always trying to keep you safe, right? But it also sends you all these messages like, ooh, let's go do that. Let's go do that. Let's go do that. And then the feet, like, it's like this one side, like, hey, let's go do that. Like, I really want to like get in better shape. Let's go check out that gym. Right. And then the other side of your brain is like, oh, I don't know. Like everyone's going to laugh at me. Like I'm probably too much out of shape. They're going to be mean to me when I go in there. It's probably going to be too expensive. Like all this other, these are all the reasons why I just want you to stay on the couch and be safe, right? And it's like that, we do that every time. Like when I come up with ideas for content, I'm like, oh, that would be good. And it's like between the time I have the idea and I start to write it down, I already start going, somebody else did that. No one's going to want to hear me talk about that, whatever. That's why like a lot of times I just have to hit record and just like, okay, this is what it is.
Yeah, that's really good.
So, all right. Well, I think that is the biggest enemy of progress. I just thought that would be an interesting thing to share with you guys. It maybe sounds like a lecture. So if so, you can just delete this.
I love it.
But I do think if you're on the fence about something, if you're struggling with something, in the gym, let's say that you're scared to make an attempt at a pull-up or a bar muscle-up.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, you just look at the bar, get some chalk on your hands, 3, 2, 1, let's just go,
Yeah.
right? See what happens. Okay, I have a long way to go. Great. How do I do it? Oh, maybe I should, hire Coach Wendy to help me with this. Oh, but Wendy seems really mean. I don't know. You know
right.
what? Let me just reach out to her, right? I'm going to send her
yeah.
a text, 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah,
Right?
I like that.
And then, okay, I've scheduled the call, but the call's coming up. I don't know if I want to talk to Wendy.
Yeah.
She's like, all right, I'll just 3, 2, 1. Let's pick up the phone and talk to her, right?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, you can do it all day long. It's
You
actually,
can.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
I can
hear,
see that.
You hear me do it sometimes in workouts. I'm like
do.
talking to myself. I'm just like,
Yeah.
all right, let's go, Jay. 3,
Yeah.
2, 1,
Yeah,
let's
that's very true.
go. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. Yeah, it reminds me of I've had 2 conversations with this week with folks who have been like one of the most powerful things I've learned is to like give myself permission to fail, which is like it's so interesting because it's like something that we inherently fear so much, so we just like often tends to avoid it. But like the more and more, it's like getting reps in. It's like the more and more you try, and even if things aren't perfectly successful, you start to realize, well, nothing bad comes of that. I just learn a thing, and so now I'm gonna try this weight because, hey, now I know like if I fail, nothing terrible is gonna happen. Or
yeah, that's exactly right. And, you know that you're going to attempt this enough times to where you'll get there.
You get it.
Right?
Yeah.
So amazing. All right. Well, we did not get to the gap in the gain. So we're going to have to push that off until next week.
Next time.
If there are any other questions, I think that's all that we have. Well, thank you all for chatting with me again today. And those of you watching or listening, this is super fun.
Yeah.
And if you need some help to get sort of through the holidays, don't hesitate to reach out to your coach. We have a bunch of great ideas, a bunch of strategies that we can kind of tailor directly to you. If not, look, we'll just send you the food that you can come over to our house and have lasagna.
Nice.
All right. Well, we will see you all in the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, we've got plenty of others. Go check out this one over here.